The new moon in Gemini on Thursday, June 6th, conjoins Venus and squares Saturn, calling us to connect with our true desires, get inspired, and immediately commit to doing the hard work. It is a great time to start projects that require artistry and dedication. Let's take a closer look and break it down for all 12 signs. My name is Anastasia. I'm a traditional Western astrologer specializing in natal, relationship, and predictive readings. If you like my work and enjoy my content, please take a few seconds to show your love and support by leaving a like or a comment, subscribing, and pressing the notification bell. It really helps, encourages YouTube algorithm to show my content to more people. You can also watch more of my videos after this one. That will help as well. And if you want to say thank you, you have the option of buying me a coffee or croissant or tea, whatever you prefer. I appreciate that and people who take advantage of that option. Before we dive in, if you have important questions, you feel confused by your chart, you want to understand what it all means, what kind of lessons are hidden in it, what your life purpose is, what the best career for you is, you can book a reading on my website, anastasiadoesastrology.com. I also do relationship readings, predictive readings, shorter readings. I can help you choose the date for your wedding and so much more. And before we dive in, since we're talking about Gemini, I'd like to highlight my Mercury in Gemini candle. It is in this iridescent, beautiful jar, and it highlights the powerful Mercury. It even has the iridescent warning label. So it highlights the beautiful Mercury in Gemini in rulership, powerful, quick and eloquent mind, speed, intellect, great, fast intellect, great for problem solving, coming up with new ideas, exciting developments. It can help boost your memory, bring insight, and aid in decision making. Especially good if you're born with Mercury in Sagittarius or Pisces, which are the signs of detriment where Mercury might struggle a little bit. So this new moon happens in 16 degrees, 17 minutes Gemini, which means you will feel it the strongest if you have planets, angles like your ascendant, descendant, between 13 and 19 degrees mutable signs, which are Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, and Pisces. And it occurs on Thursday, June 6th at 8:37 a.m. Eastern. So new moons always represent new beginnings, right? Here we are in the sign of Gemini, the sign of the mind, the sign of curiosity, the sign of a multitude of options and possibilities. So on many levels, as we shifted from Taurus season into Gemini season, we are collectively and personally in this turning point where maybe we're opening ourselves up to new possibilities. So I think the new moon in Gemini will help you solidify those possibilities. What's interesting is the new moon conjoins Venus, and on the 4th of June, we get Venus Cazimi, which is a once in like about 10, 11 months conjunction between Venus and the sun. A beautiful moment of connection and romantic new beginnings, beauty, inspiration, artistry. So around this time, this energy gets repeated, right? You may notice it between June 3rd, 4th, 5th, and then it kind of carries into the new moon in Gemini as well. You focus on love and relationships. You focus on creativity at this time. You seek out connection, you seek out partnership, you may have a better eye for beauty. So, when I'm thinking of like Gemini together, Gemini sun and moon together with Venus, I'm thinking of a beautiful web page or a beautiful art project or a notebook, right? Something where you can write, but it's also very smartly designed. So connecting, creating, feeling inspired are all the signatures of this new moon. The ruler is Mercury in Gemini, which is a strong Mercury in the sign in its domicile, which blesses you with mental fluidity, adaptability, once again, social skills, ability to perceive and understand intuitively what other people want and how better connect with other people. So once again, you have the grace and the charm of Venus, the inspiration of Venus, and you also have very strong kind of mental capacity of Mercury in Gemini. At the same time, the new moon is also squaring Saturn, and shortly after the new moon, we're going to have Venus, Mercury, the Sun all square Saturn. So the suggestion here is that you cannot do it all, potentially. You know, like Gemini season, like I said, could bring up so many options that it's very hard to choose, very hard to narrow them down. So the square from Saturn brings in that element of realism and groundedness and a need to perhaps look through the options, perhaps narrow down your focus, sacrifice, commit to something. It is likely, if you're getting excited about a new relationship or a new creative project, that you will have to have a schedule, right? I'm about to kind of dive in to work a lot more seriously on the 2025 astrology planner. I've also been working on designing notebooks. That's why the example of the notebook. But because I'm also a full-time astrologer and a content creator, sometimes it's hard for me to prioritize these like projects that are not immediate, right? They will become more immediate as we close in on 2025, but I wouldn't want to do that. So please share down below, what are your examples of this kind of planner, which it is for me, right? But the point is that you need to be structured. You need to be ready to put some blood, sweat, and tears into it. You need to be patient. You need to be ready to make some sacrifices, or just be realistic, right? What is possible? A friend of mine sent me like a meme recently where there was like a jar, let's say it's an empty jar, and you can only put so many things in your container, right? So don't try to overload yourself. Make sure that you're staying grounded and practical, and like remember that you only have so much time, you only have so much energy and so many resources. So choose wisely. If you want to know more, if you want me to look at your chart and answer any of your personal questions, as always, book a reading on my website, anastasiadoesastrology.com, and let's dive into the horoscopes. Why wait? Let's just do it. If you are an Aries rising, there's a new moon in your third house. So this feels exciting, right? Third house is new skills. Maybe you are learning something. Maybe you're getting excited about a new piece of knowledge. Maybe some kind of like hobby, you know, you're diving into crocheting or wall painting or yoga. So I think you're like very much getting excited about some kind of new possibility, new interest. Third house represents business. It represents your community. So your involvement in your business, your involvement in your community might increase. It is also quite possible that you're gaining these skills to put them into maybe a new professional venture or into a new business undertaking or into becoming more involved with your community. Third house is the place of writing and speech. So discovering things you feel passionate about, things that you want to talk about. The new moon conjoins Venus, and Venus rules your second house of money and values and seventh house of relationships and partnerships. So once again, attachment of like skills and communication and your knowledge to your desire to maybe be more financially stable, financially successful. Maybe you are beginning a partnership, romantic or business, with a conjunction to Venus ruling your seventh house of relationships, and you're needing to sign some contracts, or you're needing to deal with some like logistical questions, take some exams, right? Consult a lawyer. So it's very much, I think, a change in your mindset, an opportunity to open yourself up to new possibilities, new resources, new insights, new knowledge, as well as a chance to change your mind, like kind of open your mind to something new, I think is quite possible here. Maybe literally learning something new so that you can help your community, so that you can build a following. There is a square to Saturn in your 12th house. And I think the suggestion might be that there's still something from your past that you're dealing with, that there's some fears, some self-defeating tendencies, some bad habits that you need to address. if you're starting a business, maybe you need to examine your tendency to be self-critical and doubtful, and instead work on saying positive affirmations. Or if you have an ailing, sick family member that you're taking care of, perhaps you need to be careful and be thoughtful about how you rearrange and shift your schedule in order to be able to fit your new plans, right? Let me know how this resonates. If you want to know more, book a reading on my website, anastasiaastrology.com. I can look at your natal chart, your relationship, tell you what's coming up for you, and more. If you are a Taurus rising, there's a new moon in your second house of money and values. So the new moon in the second house heralds new beginnings, new job, a new project that brings you more money, a new partnership potentially. Venus conjoins this new moon, and she rules your first and sixth houses. And so I wonder if there's a new opportunity coming your way that involves your knowledge about health, that involves your knowledge about exercise, diet, that even potentially involves your physical body. If we're talking about teaching yoga, for example, or we're talking about being a dietitian, nutritionist. Of course, Gemini often implies a multitude of possibilities, right? There might be a very creative job that's in front of you and a lot more practical jobs. So like having to make certain adjustments and sacrifices and look at things pragmatically and realistically is quite possible. Jupiter has been in your first house from May 2023 until May 2024. You've just completed this big personal review and reinvention. And so now with the new moon in the second house, the question is like, how do I make money from it? How do I make it known? How do I even potentially make investments, right? Or grow and create more financial stability? There is a square to Saturn in the 11th house, so you may deal with some kind of roadblocks surrounding the realism of your dreams, surrounding your community. Maybe you're trying to start a yoga business, a yoga teaching business, but you realize that you're missing the connections, or you're realizing that your community already has a lot of yoga studios, and so you have to take a step back to figure out what sets you apart and to come up with like a new business strategy, a new plan. There may be, if you're looking at some kind of networking situation, if you're looking at starting a project with somebody else, starting a project with a friend, you may have to address certain disagreements or conflicts of values between you and other people. Maybe even have to deal with some kind of setback, right? You're planning to start a business with a friend, but they drop out or they sort of step out. So it's a bit of a balancing act. I think it's definitely exciting, and there's a lot of possibilities of more resources, more finances coming your way, but it's not without that Saturnian back and forth, one step forward, two steps back energy. Let me know how this resonates, and if you want to know more, book a reading on my website, anastasiaastrology.com. If you are the lovely Gemini rising, you are in this very big period right now with Jupiter having just entered your first house. We are in Gemini season. There's a new moon in your first house. On the 4th of June, there's also Venus Cazimi in your first house. So you are going through this interesting big period of personal reinvention, personal revision, and new beginnings, right? I'm quite excited for you guys. So the new moon in the first house suggests a rebirth, right? And it will be very much defined by what you feel most excited about. The new moon conjoins Venus, the ruler of your 12th and 5th houses. So being interested in a project that gives you pleasure and taking it on and making it your personality. Saying, I love teaching, I am now becoming a teacher. I love taking pictures, I am now becoming a photographer. Since Venus is in the mix and she rules your 12th house, could there be some spiritual involvement? Astrology, tarot, yoga, meditation, sort of also becoming more embodied or becoming something that you're embracing and presenting yourself as an authority figure in. There could be new beginnings in terms of healing with Venus conjoining it in the 12th house, relationships, because, you know, 12th house could represent letting go of old patterns. 5th house also represents relationships, and Venus rules the 5th and the 12th. Very much changes to your physical body, where you choose to exercise more, eat healthier, dedicate time to bettering your knowledge about something, even dedicate time to self-understanding, right? Like, it's a very much who am I type of new moon, of you looking into a mirror and being like, mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all? That's the wrong one. But maybe, you know, it's the new moon conjunct Venus. So I can very much see it as like the style changing, the look changing, the brand changing if you have a business. Opportunities to step into the light, to be more visible, to be more known. There is so much stuff going on in your first house. We have the sun, we have the moon, we have Mercury, which is you speaking about yourself. We have Venus, which is you looking more charming. We have Jupiter, which is new beginnings and opportunities to teach, to inspire, to lead. So lots of possibilities for self-development, not without glitches. Saturn steps in, and Saturn, you know, this new moon squares Saturn in your 10th house. So you may have to deal with some maybe challenging authority figures, like people in power who second guess your ideas or flat out tell you like you can't do it, you don't know, you don't have enough, you don't know enough. Or there may be some delays, maybe you're waiting for some kind of documentation and it's delayed, or literally you have a job that is putting too much pressure on you and requiring too much time that you don't have enough free time to take care of your goals and dreams. So you are very much invited to try and balance things out and try to be focused on what you want, but be ready to sacrifice something, right? Like maybe it requires you to set an hour aside every day to like commit to whatever you want to do. I don't know if you could hear it. There's like sounds from the outside. Fingers crossed we don't get any crazy sounds in this video. But yeah, like some type of realism, maybe something that tests you. I think there could be a test to your determination, and Saturn is not here to tell you no, it's not possible, but Saturn is here to see how serious you are. So you would have to prove to him that you are very serious. Let me know how this resonates. Are you already feeling Jupiter in your first house? Has it been exciting? Have you noticed anything? I feel like I've talked to some of you about it, and like, you know, people have been feeling kind of like overwhelmed already with the abundance of possibilities. If you are feeling overwhelmed, Jupiter in Taurus is definitely a way more chill energy, and I highly recommend my Jupiter in Taurus candle. And if you want to book a reading, ask me questions, talk about your chart, about your future or your relationship, you can find me on my website, anastasiadoesastrology.com. Now, if you are the lovely Cancer rising, the new moon happens in your 12th house, which is all about new beginnings in spirituality, mental health, healing work, and healing of self. It's also connected to foreign lands and getting away, retreating somewhere. So with the new moon in the 12th house and Jupiter being in your 12th house for the next year, I think you're really prioritizing peace and retreating and taking a break and maybe having a better balance in your life. So on some level, there could be an opportunity to maybe get away, to maybe even like move somewhere to a more quieter and peaceful place, right? Or maybe just go on a trip and even maybe connect with people that are more centering and grounding and spiritual. With a new moon in the 12th house, you may be discovering that you're craving that spiritual community and some kind of deeper meaning in life, deeper connection. For many people, this coming period, this next year, could be about a deep study of astrology, a deep spiritual inquiry, right? Like diving into tarot, diving into astrology, learning about yourself, taking classes, one of you has mentioned that you'd like to study with me, and I'm definitely considering doing it. I just think there's, you know, it's like, once again, the question of timing and Saturn allowing for things to happen. But yeah, like you are starting, you're like diving deep into the waters of the 12th house, which is very potent in terms of self-understanding, in terms of blind spots and hidden things. And so getting more interested in topics that are mysterious, that are spiritual, that are soulful is quite likely. New moon conjoins Venus, the ruler of your 11th house. So here goes community, and the ruler of your 4th house. So here comes moving and traveling and maybe changing your location for the time being. Please let me know how this resonates too. And then 12th house deals with healing. So you might also be understanding yourself better and healing some wounds. Jupiter tends to be a bit of a guardian angel in the 12th house. So it could help you feel better about the past, help you feel more happy and calm and sort of, you know, relaxed on many levels. So healing, doing healing work, spiritual development are some of the most important things here. The new moon does square Saturn in the 9th. So Saturn, as always, brings a dose of realism and a need to be grounded and a need to be ready to sacrifice and move slowly, because Saturn can bring roadblocks. Saturn being in the 9th house could bring delays around education. Let's say you want to move because you're applying for school. Saturn in the 9th could be, oh, we're missing a document and we can't accept you. Please send it again. And you get frustrated about that. Saturn in the 9th could also be some kind of legal matter that gets stretched out, delayed, and affects your progress. Once again, if you're moving, maybe there are some kind of issues with a visa. Saturn in the 9th could also be connected to like ideological tensions. Perhaps you do want to study astrology, but you grew up in a family that thought astrology is forbidden, or, you know, tarot is forbidden, whatever it might be. So having to address some of these restrictive delays, frustrating energies. Saturn in the 9th could also be like a teacher or an authority figure that is a little bit controlling or restrictive somehow. Let me know how this resonates, and if you want to know more, book a reading on my website, anastasiadoesastrology.com. We'll take a look at your chart, your relationship, your year to come, whatever you'd like me to. Moving on to the lovely Leo rising. If you are a Leo rising, there's a new moon in your 11th house, conjunct Venus, the ruler of your 10th and 3rd. So this is interesting, right? Like the new moon in the house of community, in the house of your social network, in the house of friendships, in the house of Instagram and YouTube and kind of exposure to a larger world, could very much ignite new beginnings in that realm. It could put you in front of other people. Jupiter is in your 11th house for the next year. Jupiter rejoices in the 11th house. Jupiter likes to teach and inspire, and 11th house is full of people. So it's very much gifting you the access to a larger community. So I guess the question here is like, what do you want to share with them? What is your message? What do you want to be known for? The conjunction to Venus, the ruler of your 10th house on the 3rd, implies that you're maybe building your community with the professional goals in mind. You're maybe thinking of starting a business. Venus rules the 3rd house. You're maybe starting... This bird is very loud. You're maybe thinking of starting a blog, a podcast, some kind of YouTube channel, Instagram channel, and it could really be the great year to do it consistently. Jupiter in the 11th house, and the new moon basically like activates Jupiterian energy. But consistently, I've seen it be highly beneficial for people trying to grow their social media following. So it's your turn. And like, yeah, very much about, I think, like taking your interests, taking your professional passions and reaching out to other people, starting partnerships with other people, asking them to connect you with someone who knows someone who knows someone. So there is a lot of opportunities to connecting, finding new friends, expanding your social network, building a following, right? Growing your connections. The new moon does square Saturn in the 8th house, and that is like our wet blanket a little bit. And Saturn in the 8th house implies that you may have certain debts or certain entanglements. They can be financial debts, like you think of starting a podcast or starting a business or starting a yoga school, but you still have a debt that you're paying off. Or entanglements with other people where you want to start a podcast with a friend, but you actually promised another friend. And so that friend kind of calls in you and tells you, hey, but we had a plan. So you may find yourself in a bit of a bind. But I think Saturn suggests that you think about spending your resources wisely and spending your time wisely, because Jupiter in Gemini, new moon in Gemini can get you very excited about the possibilities, but it's not realistic to try and harness them all. So do your best to narrow it down and kind of commit to what is the most important one. Let me know how this resonates. If you want to know more, book a reading on my website, Anastasia.astrology.com. I'm happy to look at your natal chart, your future, your solar return chart, and your relationship, or anything else you'd like me to look at. Anastasia.astrology.com. If you are a Virgo rising, there's a new moon in your 10th house, which is all about professional development, professional growth, and new opportunities. We just had Venus Cazimi here on the 4th of June, and you are exploring connections with other people. You are looking for work or sides of your job that are more pleasant, that are more enjoyable, that are more social and more creative potentially, right? Like the fact that Venus is right here, it's all about connection. So starting a new partnership or dating someone you meet through your job, and it's all about pleasure, I think. So finding work that is joyful, that is creative, that is fulfilling is very much part of the lesson of this new moon. And Venus being here, she rules your 9th house, she rules your 2nd house. So Venus also brings the aspect of education, travel, law, publishing, writing, right? So maybe the work you're looking for involves being more free to travel and move around, or teach and inspire, maybe shape young minds. Maybe it's about writing, maybe it's about becoming a lawyer, right? And it also rules your 2nd house. So Venus rules the 2nd house. So the implication might also be that you're looking to level up your finances. You're not just looking for a job that is enjoyable, but you also want something that is paying well, right? And is not just enough to get by. So opportunities for growth, opportunities to like find a new job, get a promotion, get a raise. It's definitely a good time for that. There is a square, however, to Saturn in the 7th house. And this is a bit of a disclaimer, because Saturn in the 7th house implies certain karma, heaviness, serious conversations around relationships and partnerships. So there could be a duty you have to your partner, your marriage partner, your business partner that is holding you back a little bit. Maybe you're married and you need to figure out how you are going to balance being a parent with these new exciting professional possibilities. Maybe you get a chance, you're getting a new job that allows you to travel or like move to Paris, but your partner doesn't want to move to Paris. So having to do a bit of a balancing between your professional goals and your relationship goals, or even if you have like a side business, you may need to compromise and potentially let something go in that place. So Saturn just brings an element of like, be realistic about it and try to figure out the best way to have a good balance in life. Let me know how this resonates. If you want to know more, book a reading on my website, Anastasia.astrology.com. We can look at your chart, talk about your future, your relationship, whatever your heart desires. If you are the lovely Libra rising, there's a new moon in your 9th house. And this is exciting, right? The new moon conjoins Venus, your chart ruler, and the ruler of your 8th house. And you are opening yourself up to new possibilities, new writing projects, new something exciting to publish, some of your work, some of your knowledge, a desire to share with other people. Ninth house rules education. So you may be getting excited to go back to school or take a pottery class, take a yoga class, become sort of kind of expand your knowledge, expand your repertoire. Of course, Gemini could get a little bit frazzled, a little bit too excited about a whole bunch of possibilities. So the invitation here is to narrow it down, especially because the new moon also squares Saturn in the 6th house. And Saturn in the 6th could suggest that, does your health allow you to do all these things? Does your work allow you? Do your commitments to other people and duties you have to other people allow you to expand without bound and start studying or go travel or publish a ton of things, take on a lot of new projects? So Saturn, the square to Saturn in the 6th house, I think is very much a reality check, and also could also, you know, like with the new moon in the 9th house, I think you're definitely on the precipice of like starting something new. It might involve traveling more, it might involve learning something new, it might involve becoming a teacher, like I said, publishing, presenting your work, even becoming a lawyer or starting a legal case of some sort, applying for a visa. Like the key word is expansion, growth. 9th house represents, it's the house of God. It's the house of like spiritual inquiry and learning and connecting with other people. But the square to Saturn in the 6th is very practical. Like Saturn in the 6th is like, yeah, but do you physically have time for that? What about your existing workload? So Saturn it could just be that like inner realization that you don't have a lot of time and maybe you need to balance things out and let something go. Or Saturn in the 6th could be quite like a literal event, something happening. You book a trip, but then your child gets sick and you can't go, or you sign up for a class and realize that it kind of contradicts your workload, or maybe a boss is becoming a little bit like controlling. So you may have to deal with very like Saturnian concerns, and like Saturn in the 6th is not very glamorous, right? It's just things of life that you need to take care of. It's not a no, it's not like don't do it, but just be ready for some sacrifices and compromises that you have to make on your journey. Let me know how this resonates. If you want to know more, if you want me to look at your natal chart or look at your relationship or talk about your future, book a reading on my website, anastasiadoesastrology.com. Now, if you are the lovely Scorpio rising, there's a new moon in your 8th house in conjunction with Venus, the ruler of your 7th and 12th houses. So the new moon in the 8th is all about joining resources with other people. That could be about a marriage of some sort, right? Like you join resources by opening a joint bank account when you get married. It could be about a new partnership. Maybe you take on a new employee and you need to negotiate with them. You need to sign a contract. Maybe you take on a loan or a debt of some sort, right? Like, so the new moon in the 8th could be about agreements, negotiations, and getting in bed with someone in a likely not a literal way, but it could be a literal way. And as always with the 8th house, we sort of want to say, just read the fine print carefully, right? And be kind of as honest as you possibly can. The moon conjoins Venus, the ruler of your house of relationships, partnerships, and marriage, business partnerships as well. So if you are, getting married, maybe the new moon in the 8th represents that joint bank account, or maybe you're investing in like starting a retirement account together, or you're starting to save up for your child's future. So some type of like marital financial action. If you are like kind of busy starting a business, if the last year brought some kind of important partnership in your life, the new moon in the 8th could be about negotiating, sharing, figuring out who pays for what, how you handle resources, kind of, how can you have good boundaries. The new moon in the 8th house can also represent paying off debts, and debts could be literal financial debts, or debts could be connected to your old relationship. since the new moon conjoins Venus, the ruler of the 7th and the 12th. So maybe on some level, this could also be like a very healing new moon where you are entangling yourself from outdated connections and closing some old chapters and saying goodbye to people or even emotions that no longer serve you. The new moon does square Saturn in the 5th house, so somehow there is a bit of a tension connected to the house of pleasure, romance, children. I just bumped the microphone. And this could be interesting, right? Like if we're thinking of children and parenthood, maybe there's an element of like needing to make certain sacrifices because you have a child on the way, or because you have a child and they have certain needs and you were going to get a mortgage, but your child wants a mortgage. Like, or somehow, you know, like maybe becoming a parent and knowing that you have a child on the way, or knowing that your child needs something could be like a bit of a restriction right now. I think there's also a bit of tension about like having to be serious and maybe not being able to do things that are playful and fun, because Saturn in the 5th house suggests that you really need to be structured and you need to be serious. You may be literally dealing with some disagreements in your relationship around money, around love, around parenthood, and like having to negotiate those things. And maybe, you know, you bring up one of those topics and you realize you've never talked about it, and now you need to address it and you need to figure things out and get on the same page with your business or romantic or creative partner. So a little bit of like seriousness around these topics is quite likely at the time of the new moon, but don't be discouraged. Just be ready for compromises and maybe some sacrifices to be made. Let me know how this resonates, and if you want to know more, book a reading on my website, anastasiadoesastrology.com. I'm happy to look at your natal chart, at your solar return if you have a birthday coming up, or at your relationship. If you are a Sagittarius rising, there's a new moon in your house of relationships and partnerships, which could signify a new beginning in love, meeting someone new, moving in with a partner, getting engaged, getting married, joining forces together on a business project. Since 7th house represents contracts and agreements in business, this can also be about starting an important partnership, right? Getting pregnant is possible too. It's just all about you coming together with other people and starting something exciting together. The new moon conjoins Venus, which is like also another sign of romance, and we just had Venus Cazimi here on the 4th of June. So even more potential for some kind of beauty and love and inspiration coming into your life. And Venus conjunct this new moon also rules your 6th house and your 11th house. So she brings in not just topics of love, but she brings topics of work, topics of like excitement over projects, and she brings in topics of like commitment to something, friendships, networks, communities, so work that maybe serves the world, work that is hard but rewarding. With the 11th house, it's your dreams, so you might be meeting someone, be that romantic or business, who can help you get closer to your goals, right? You want to work at Google and you meet someone who knows how to connect with people there, right? So some like important development in relationship that gets you closer to your dream is quite possible. The more complicated aspect this moon is making is the square to Saturn in the 4th house, and this reads as some tension, some roadblocks, some delays, some maybe conflicts with your elders, with your parents, some disagreements, and like you know, the Saturn in the 4th house suggests that you have right now, you're dealing with this karma around family. So, you know, maybe you're getting married or you're getting engaged, but your family's against it, or your family doesn't want you to move out of the house. So you will have to deal with a bit of a kind of, you know, having to navigate that, having to figure out how to pursue your goals but still deal with family members. The fourth house, Saturn, can also represent some issues around real estate, some issues around property that is maybe somehow holding you back or is weighing heavily on your mind. The benefit of having the new moon in the 7th house and having Jupiter for the next year in the 7th house is that you are blessed with good people right now. You are luckier in terms of who you meet. So if you are struggling and if there are any kind of heavy, difficult, serious topics, lean into your connections, ask for help, ask for advice, and take it one step at a time. Being patient is definitely an important lesson here. Let me know how this resonates. If you want to know more, book a reading on my website, anastasiadoesastrology.com. I can look at your natal chart, your relationship, your solar return, and many other things. Now, if you are the lovely Capricorn rising, there's a new moon in your 6th house. So new beginnings around health, work, service, sacrifice, right? 6th house represents commitment to things. It represents working on something that is like difficult, that is serious, that is important somehow. So with the new moon in the 6th, you might be getting inspired about some kind of project, about some type of work that maybe serves other people. 6th house classically has been the place of like the sick, the poor, the underprivileged. So with the new moon here, you maybe are starting to volunteer. Maybe you're starting to volunteer. Maybe you are deciding to become a nurse or deciding to start working for a nonprofit. So there might be some kind of important involvement in the helping others that comes with this new moon. Taking better care of your health, right? Kind of committing to decluttering, having better flow, getting rid of things, seeing doctors, kind of taking care of your health. Once again, something that's not like the most glamorous, something that's not the easiest or the most fun, but things that need to be done, right? Like things that in the long run can improve your life. You may also be getting a pet or dealing with something connected to a pet. The new moon conjoins Venus, so I think there's also like a deeper underlying desire to do work that gets you closer to other people, that improves the world, that is joyful and pleasant. And Venus rules your 5th house of pleasure as well, so it's even more emphasized in that regard. And Venus rules your 10th house of career, so I think professional changes or personal changes in terms of like decluttering, taking better care of your health, eating better, that indirectly benefit your career too, or can lead to having more energy, to having more motivation, more inspiration, and more joy from work. The only difficult aspect that comes with this new moon is the square to Saturn in your 3rd house, and Saturn in the 3rd will just ask you some practical, some realistic questions, right? Like Saturn in the 3rd might be like, yeah, but do you have enough time for this? Is there literally an opening in your schedule? Are there other things that you would rather do? Is there something that you need to express and talk about in this process, right? Like Saturn in the 3rd could be very literal, like roadblock, some kind of document you're missing, some kind of test you need to take, some type of education you need to take, or it could also be a little bit more internal, where you have self-doubt that you need to move past, or sort of negative self-talk, skepticism. Let's be honest, Capricorn risings sometimes struggle with being like skeptical, seeing limitations before the opportunities. So both, I think, externally having to streamline things, clear your schedule, do some logistical work, get technology you need, sign the documents, consult people, and also like internal mental blocks that you may have to address are represented by the Saturn. Let me know how this resonates, and if you want to know more, book a reading on my website, anastasiadoesastrology.com. If you are an Aquarius rising, there's a new moon in your 5th house. New beginnings in romance, pleasure, self-expression, parenthood, right? Let's start with romance. The new moon in the 5th could suggest a new relationship or an important development in a relationship. Maybe you've been dating around and you feel ready to settle down, you feel ready to commit. 5th house is the place of pleasure, and that I think is often overlooked, because pleasure is very different for different people. For someone, pleasure might be about starting a business. For someone else, it might be about getting a plastic surgery they've been dreaming about. For someone else, it could be about becoming a parent. So I think with Gemini, the curious energy here, and Jupiter having just entered Gemini for a full year, you are opening yourself up to new exciting pursuits. You're maybe learning something, you're maybe traveling far away, or part of your excitement could involve traveling, because this new moon conjoins Venus, the ruler of your 4th and your 9th house. So 9th house is very much about travel and education and meeting foreign people, dating foreign people, going to travel and meeting foreign people to date there, right? So there is I think the focus right now is what is fun? How can I have more fun? Since Venus also rules the 4th house, maybe you're having fun with your family, or maybe the fun involves expanding your home, spending more time at home, having I don't know, putting a dart board in the basement or a billiard table in the basement. It's funny, there's some words that we almost never use in our everyday language, because I almost never say billiard table. Is that even how you say it? Or darts board, I'm sure. Anyways, I digress, but I bet there are words that each of us will be I don't remember the last time I used that word. I don't know. The new moon also squares Saturn in the 2nd house, and here's where the difficulty comes in, or roadblocks, tests, and tensions, frustrations come in. And that is the house of finances. So Saturn in the 2nd could suggest that your resources, your money, your liquid money is currently limited for some reason. And so this desire, this excitement, this inspiration to date, to become a parent, to travel, to study, to have fun, will run into the realism and practicality of Saturn. You can't spend your lust money. I mean, people can, but you probably shouldn't, right? Saturn will remind you of that. Saturn in the 2nd can also suggest that there is a bit of a disagreement between you and your partner, and how you see money and what you want to spend on, maybe how you see parenthood, how you see certain important values in life. So Saturn in the 2nd just says that you will need to move past some financial questions, some disagreements of values, and potentially have to be realistic about things, have to be kind of grounded and rational and ready for compromise and for sacrifice, because you can't have it all, at least not immediately. Please let me know how this resonates, and if you want to know more about your relationship, about your natal chart, about the energies coming up, do not hesitate to book a reading on my website, anastasiadoesastrology.com. Now, if you are a Pisces rising, there is a new moon in your 4th house, the place of home, family, and living situation. I only notice how loud the street is when I'm filming videos like this, because I think I'm so used to it, but this makes me realize it. So the new moon in the 4th house, right? New beginnings in the family, new beginnings in the home, new beginnings in real estate. Family, this could be about starting a family. This could be about a family member moving in with you, or you moving out of the family house. Maybe you have lived with your family the entire life, and now you're ready to spread your wings and fly away. Maybe you are making changes in your home. Maybe you are expanding your home, right? Jupiter just entered your 4th house for a full year. Jupiter likes big, grand things. It's in Gemini, so the expansion might involve an office, or a place to play, or a place to have a trivia night, or maybe buying more technology and things like that. But you are, I think, craving more kind of fun and even more pleasure in your home, because the new moon conjoins Venus. Real estate, you may be thinking of investing in real estate. You may be thinking just in general of having more comfort in your life, and rebuilding relationships with family members is also a possibility. Reconnecting with family members is a possibility. The new moon does conjoin Venus, the ruler of your 3rd and 8th house. So that is also feeling like potentially a move, because 3rd house represents neighborhood and neighbors. 8th house represents debts and loans. So of course, you know, with Venus ruling the 8th house, maybe you're paying off a mortgage. Maybe the comfort and security comes from like closing a debt and starting to feel more at home. But it can also very much be about like, okay, I'm ready to move. I'm going to get a loan. I'm going to buy my first property or buy a second property. 3rd house is the place of communication. 8th house is the place of karma and sort of karmic debts. So maybe talking to family members about the past helps you get closer, helps you move forward, right? Forgive them, or just kind of go through some kind of change together. There is a square to Saturn in the 1st house, so it's not all easy and joyful and playful. The square to Saturn will bring up certain frustrations, limitations, and blockages that are potentially self-imposed, right? With Saturn in the 1st, you're maybe dealing with some like negative attitude, negative belief that is stopping you. Maybe you're thinking of buying a property, but then Saturn in the 1st house says that you will not have the money to pay it off. So addressing those like negative restricting beliefs is a big part of this new moon, as well as 1st house also represents your health, your physical body, your time you have available. So, you know, as you expand your home, maybe like welcome a child, move, get like a bigger home, you may have to deal with like literal timing constraints or physical constraints or mental constraints and potentially have to move through them. Be ready to say no to some things. Be ready to compromise, right? Maybe you're not moving into $1 million mansion. I don't even know if that's enough to buy a mansion these days, but maybe you're having to compromise a little bit. Maybe it's not about having everything done right now. Maybe it's about moving in smaller, sort of taking smaller steps. Let me know how this resonates. If you want to know more, if you want me to look at your natal chart, your relationship, or your future, book a reading on my website, anastasiadoesastrology.com. And thank you as always for being here, for watching my videos and supporting my work with likes, comments, and happy thoughts. I really appreciate you guys, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.